Hey, welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Happy 4th of July to everybody out there. Mine started fantastic. Got to watch a koala eat eucalyptus leaves. I mean, if it doesn't get more goosies galore than that, and quite frankly, I don't know what it is. I mean, I woke up today to some Bradley Beal rumors. On the one hand, it's like, yeah, Bradley Beal's obviously a talented player, and if the Miami Heat could get him in a buyout, who's going to turn down that offensive talent with Miami? I mean, it would seem like, why not add that to the fold? But then also it kind of goes into the effect of like, all right, do the Miami Heat need to go in that direction right now? Like, what kind of a burst? It's kind of hard to gauge on it, right, with him, because he hasn't really played on a competitive team or in a comfortable position for years now, and certainly was a guy that definitely was the apple of a lot of Heat fans' eyes about drawing him in, especially really off the peak of his powers, leading the league in scoring. And then we of course went through last year where there was some talks. He had said that Pat, that there was some talks, would he go, but the ownership wasn't necessarily on board with it. And now we're at this point where the Suns are trying to do whatever they can to move on from him. And I genuinely don't know what Bradley Beal trade the Heat could be presented with, because Marc Stein reports that the Heat and Suns had exploratory dialogue this week on a potential Bradley Beal trade, but those talks ultimately collapsed. I genuinely don't know what they could have offered that would have had the Heat say yes. Like that to me is like one of those where, like, if you're looking at the Phoenix Suns and they just traded Kevin Durant to Jalen Green, you just kind of had failed negotiations with them and negotiations that didn't go fantastic. What do they got? Like, are you getting, like, to me, it's like, unless you're getting Devin Booker in the trade too, I don't understand. Because if you're the Heat, you're probably like, they're probably going to buy him out. Like, they're probably going to buy him out. And then, yeah, you're likely going to be in the game for Bradley Beal, because people will look at Miami's situation, especially if they end up trading Andrew Wiggins, and be like, oh, well, that's a place where I can throw up some points and make some things happen. But when I saw that they had trade talks, and I was like, what were those? When they say exploratory dialogue, what was that? Does like Andy Ellsberg say, hello? Hey, it's the Suns. You want to trade for Bradley Beal? No thanks. Click. They explored it. Like, I just don't know what that could have. Even if he would have waived his no trade clause where he's at this point, I just don't see the Miami Heat adding a couple of years at that price tag. I would be pretty surprised about that. Stein writes that the expectation now is the Suns will end up buying out Beal of his contract that contains one of the just two full no trade clauses. If he is bought out, the no trade clause does go away, because that contract is basically done. However, unless Beal surrenders at least $14 million of the $111 million owed to him in his contract, Phoenix would not have the payroll flexibility to employ the league's waive and stretch on a Beal buyout. That's I don't know. If you're Bradley Beal, Bradley Beal has shown he's comfortable. Like, we remember, like, where it's like there was the whole, like, get comfortable being uncomfortable. There was going to be this standoff between Jimmy and the Heat. And really, I think the king of being uncomfortable is Bradley Beal. They really, truly tried to bully this man last year. And we're like, hey, Brad, you want to come off the bench? And really felt like they were trying to freeze him out. And he'll just be like, I'm a professional. I'll just take this check. All I got to do, what I got to do? Show up, play basketball every day. I got $111 million. I don't got to give up a damn cent of it. So I don't know, man. That's going to be an interesting situation where that is. It says it's often written that the buyout for Beal could land in the $90 million range. How precise the media forecast proves remains to be seen, but there's no ambiguity here. The Heat will have interest in signing Beal if he can make it to be an unrestricted free agent. Sources say that both Milwaukee and Miami would have interest in Beal in that scenario. I believe that. I think, and honestly, I guess the question there is, if Beal does end up giving up some money, is there a place where like the Heat are offering more than the minimum for him, and then like it actually does become a bid of like, hey, if he gave up $14 million, who's going to be more likely to make up that dough? And then he's going to be looking at me like, all right, we know forever like he wants to be in a location like Miami, probably more so than Milwaukee. But, it's probably like they're going to lean into him if he does play for the Milwaukee Bucks. He's going to be looked upon as basically picking up the Damian Lillard slack. So that may make more sense. For Miami, it just is one of those things where like, again, it's hard to know with the murkiness of this team. Like if this is a team that has Wiggins on it, then like you just paid Davion Mitchell to be a guard. I guess it's not a price where like you have to start him, but I think that the idea is to start him. And you have Tyler Hero. Are you not venturing down the same road again that you were just doing this? So that's an interesting thing. Like, yeah, it's a talent influx, and Miami certainly needs offensive talent. There's no doubt about that. But there's also this element of if you're leaning into the kids and you're going youth movement, and that's going to truly be like, Bradley Beal's kind of on that timeline. It feels like to me, if that would have happened, and I am kind of fascinated about this of where it is because we don't really know. But, is there any pressure being put on by Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero being like, hey, very clearly they both wanted Kevin Durant, right? I guess more so Tyler, we've seen the public, sentiment there that it seemed like he wanted Kevin Durant. Bam, I guess we could just assume it. So is there going to be some element of those guys saying that they want some talent influx there? That's gonna happen. The other piece of this from Stein's report this morning in his newsletter was the Heat and Damian Lillard, and he says the Heat have serious interest in signing Lillard, as well as exploring the prospect of adding a bought-out Beal. Yet it's fair to wonder why Lillard would look to sign quickly unless he's searching for organizational support as he rehabs. It says our good friend Chris Haynes reported Thursday evening that Lillard is indeed in no rush to make his decision. He will get plenty of decision from the Heat and several other teams. Yeah, that is an interesting thing. Like and apparently this drew the ire of the Bucks, is that he wanted to rehab at home next to his kids. And you couldn't get any further from Portland than Miami unless he just would enjoy having his family here and be down here for that whole situation. So, I from my standpoint, see, I think the thing that is different from the Beal to the Dame thing is like you get Damian Lillard in the fold. You're gonna have this year to try everybody out, and then like at least he's with your team, and With Beal, it's like, yeah, you got to play Beal if you're going to bring him in, right? Like, you're not going to bring Bradley Beal in and ice him out. You're going to give him some kind of a role here. So it's not to say that the Miami Heat can't use Bradley Beal. It's, again, just where are they at? Are they going to make some kind of a run at this thing? Are they going to, do they feel like if they get him on the cheap skis that him along with this roster is a big infuse, that they would be sleeping on him and that all of a sudden he's going to – be reinvigorated being in a place where, hey, yeah, they wanted him. It's now on the right terms. It's always on those discounted right terms for the Heat recently. But the only thing that I found surprising in this whole Stein report was like, yeah, they had exploratory trade talks. I'm like, they did? Like, what were those trade talks? Hello, goodbye? Because you kind of know everybody knows where this is heading. They don't want him on the roster. They effed up. They know that they got to mess up. And you have all these teams that are desperate. They're doing crazy things. And I think that's with the Heat, their desperate move that they pulled a couple of years ago was trading Terry Rozier. And they could do something crazy like, stretch him and bring somebody else in for, peanuts, or just to have a roster spot. But I think Miami's in the place right now where it's like, we did our desperate move. We're trying to get out of, that desperation hell. Like, I think that's where they're at right now. They want to fortify themselves, set their organization up a little bit better. So I don't hate the idea of bringing in Bradley Beal, but I'm not craving it as much as I was a couple of years ago, just because if you're going youth, if you're going young, he's not young. It doesn't seem like it makes a lot of sense for Miami, unless it's just like, hey, he's coming in on the minimum. Why not? And, you have somebody else to take some offensive pressure off of Tyler Hero that maybe will want it a little bit more than Andrew Wiggins does, even though it's not a, pure position for position. I know Andrew Wiggins definitely more of a two-way player, definitely, there on the wing, you're kind of loading up on a smaller-ish team there, but certainly would add to some offensive firepower that Miami definitely craves. So we'll see, but trade, buyout, I could see it. I could see it, but I don't know how much will the Heat go above a minimum for him. I doubt it.